today we've been introduced to the world of Just Cause 3 here at Avalanche Studios, and I'd like to ask you, Roland, one of the things that struck me when you did your demo and you showcased the strength of the game is like, normally in a game presentation you perhaps start with like, this is the story, this is the setting, this is your objective, this is what you're doing. This time you just jumped straight into the fun. Is that sort of indicative of where the focus has been in development, or what can I read into that?
Sure. I mean, we wanted to start right from the beginning on gameplay. We wanted to start with systems. If you build it with the right complexity but the simplicity of the controls, then the game itself will create all sorts of fun for the player, and it then becomes about learning how the system works. What's really fun is you then jump into the world almost right away and everything is open to you. I mean, Just Cause from the very beginning is a sandbox first. And so we just want to add lots of tools and everything like that to the player, which then allows them to create all sorts of wild scenarios that you would never see in anything else. And of course we have a story and everything else within the world, but people come to the Just Cause series because of how wild and over the top and that core sandbox experience that really it's hard to find anywhere else.
Mm. So, I mean, does that mean anything for you as a developer when you know this is what people come for? You sort of, does that provide you a challenge to sort of still provide something meaningful in terms of story and that sort of thing, or do you sort of think like, yeah, we're gonna keep it light because people won't pay that much attention anyway?
Well, I think it's lighthearted. So from the very beginning, we're always sitting there and checking out the world and saying, well, if I'm playing with physics and I've tethered someone up to a wall and then a car next to it and the whole thing explodes, well, it's just silly. And then if you had a serious story next to it, it just wouldn't really fit together. So our story has the same sort of humor in it, which, you know, it allows us to be a little campy and fun. And I think the very fact that the game is so much fun to make hopefully comes through in the game. And even when working with the actors on set and showing them videos of how the game worked and telling them, okay, in this scene, this is what's going on. And you could see in their eyes, like, this seems just really silly. And of course, then you get great humor, and we got some amazing actors who were able to kind of keep that tone. And it's a little bit of the B action movie feel. You know, we wanted to keep the campiness, the wild characters, and the crazy scenarios, but the game is really about the player. And I think that's why we've been so lucky that, you know, the modding community and the fan base has been so supportive of the franchise, is that it is about the player and their creativity first and foremost. So when we started making Just Cause 3, that's where we started.
I think it's also interesting when you're showing this game to us now. You're talking about, you know, being able to tether a third thing to something, but you have yet to sort of set a cap on that. It's still in development, still being sort of decided, and sort of how much more. And you know, it's interesting for me. Like I can see how much more fun it is with 3 things, but you know, then the question gets like, how much fun would it be with 4 and 5? And is there a point when it's more tethers doesn't make any you know, doesn't have any meaning anymore?
Well, sure. I mean, there becomes a point where mentally it becomes more difficult to think, what were all the things that I had tethered together? And so we're testing it. I mean, we have the technology to be able to do it, which is a testament to how good the developers are and how smart the guys are making all the physics behind it. But there's a sweet spot. Somewhere 3, 4, 5, we'll be somewhere in there, I think.
Also found it interesting how, of course, verticality has always been very, very much important in Just Cause, because, you know, it's just the way the world has been built has always been important. But the way you change the parachute now perhaps makes it a little bit more accessible to you know, someone who, you know, a lot of people will normally sort of try to play this way from the ground to start with, and then maybe they'll graduate and be better and better, but it makes it perhaps a little bit more accessible to sort of gain that vertical advantage early on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we wanted players to feel comfortable. And when we started looking at the parachute, we wanted to create a very stable platform, a place where combat was possible, which means you need to be able to aim from it without it destroying what you're trying to look at. Now, doing that alone meant we kind of had to stabilize it and slow it down a little bit, which also took away some of its navigation abilities. So that balance was constantly being looked at. And then by adding the wingsuit, we kind of add back in that sheer joy of moving through the world. But we wanted a feeling of doing something simple, like pressing a button to reel in and pressing another button to open the wingsuit, to feel visceral and action-packed. And what was in your mind of, can I do something that makes me feel like a giant superhero, a big action star? Could I pull it off? And the fact that it's pretty simple to pull it off, but the complexity comes by where your imagination will take you. Oh, well, now that I'm up in the parachute, can I dual tether two things on the ground while I'm up here? And you realize you can do that. And then you're like, well, I can then retract at the same time, and the layers just keep going. And, you know, our hope is that after a while you start smiling at it. And, you know, if you have a game that makes you smile every time you play it, that seems like a pretty good thing to have.
And I guess what's really important about adding all these different systems together is the fact that you can switch between them so seamlessly. It's so quick that it really facilitates, you know, using 3 different things in sequence at the same time and doing all these things at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the guys who have been working on the animation and the tech side there, it's really fun to work with them. Each day they, hey, Roland, come check this out. I added a new spin into wingsuit when you're retracting under this specific circumstance. And you kind of go and do it, and it's just awesome. And you're like, that's spectacular. But it feels visceral and quick, and you can transition immediately out of it. I mean, they managed to do something that, you know, I think is a bit of the holy grail in games, is you want it to look really good, and you want it to be really responsive. And normally you got to give up one for the other. And they spent, you know, a long time trying to figure out, how do we marry the two together? And a part of that is about how we work here at Avalanche. You know, it's not animators over there and tech over here. It's about people who are developers, all working together to make a great game. And so their compromises that they made actually, I think, made the game even more fun. The ability to be completely fluid in the world was set as a challenge to them. And I think they rose to that occasion pretty well.
Another part of the sandbox is obviously sort of vehicles and weapons and all that stuff. And it was funny when you showed it. Of course, you got the dev menus on. It's an early version of the game, but and the final UI isn't in there. But basically, what you're handing the player and powering the player and to play the game they want is to basically be able to spawn in stuff similar like you would in a dev version. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of balancing in there as well. But can you tell us a little bit about that process and how you changed with C4, for instance? I guess it's just about empowering the player.
Yeah, I mean, when you're making a game and you start using the same dev menu options in the game to just spawn in what you want, and you realize you're having tons of fun with it, you got to get to that point saying, well, if this is that much fun, maybe we should give this to the player. And so one of the things in JC2 that came back was people didn't want to wait for the animations and ordering one item at a time. There was also a big currency blocker on it, so I want to order this big awesome car, but what you really want to do is just smash that car into a wall after about 30 seconds, or you drive it off a cliff and go to parachute. But and then you've suddenly spent all this money that you spent time trying to collect. So we just took that all away and just said, you know what, players just want their toys and they want a sandbox. And if you think about where the word sandbox comes from, and sitting in a box filled with sand, and you have like your shovels and stuff, and you're making your own world. But it's not like you have to wait to use your next shovel. You know, if you feel like using another shovel, then go ahead. And so we started looking at it and wanting to give as much freedom to the player as possible. So we kind of came up with this rebel drop system. And of course, there's balancing in it. There are certain things that we need to do to make sure the game stays balanced and is fun. But yeah, it makes it much easier for the player to kind of get whatever toys that they feel like attacking with. And C4 was exactly the same thing. We said C4 and JC2 was lots of fun. It was great to hold a giant explosion in your hand, but you had to go find it. So why not just give it to the player all the time? I mean, it's Just Cause. After all, what better way than to have an explosion at your disposal whenever you want? And so though we balance it and only give you a certain amount that you can plant at the same time, it is always there. So even if you ran out of ammo, you never run out of explosions.
Right. So obviously a big thing about sort of Just Cause 2 has maintained its popularity, and a lot of that is owed to the multiplayer mod. Obviously, it's been very popular. You opted not to do a full-on multiplayer mode, as far as I know. But can you tell us a little bit about how you bring sort of an online space into the game anyway?
Sure. I mean, when you start developing any game, you look at every possible scenario. And, you know, when we were looking at Just Cause 3, it wanted it to be kind of your sandbox. This is your place to mess around, and but we still knew that the community loves sharing things. And if you look at how Just Cause 2's popularity grew, a lot of it came from all the YouTube videos and all the insanity that an individual could pull off. And it kind of felt like the new consoles and what Steam is doing was doing it for us. And they have buttons for sharing, and I can't imagine another game that's more perfectly suited for it. So we really wanted to push that side and get people to share more, and so we incorporated a ghosting system that allows you to see how other players have played in your world. But I mean, you know, we both have different schedules now, and if the two of us wanted to play together and to organize our time, it can be pretty tough. And also, I mean, multiplayer, it is a difficult thing, and there are developers who spend all their energy on doing just that really well. And I applaud them for it, because I love playing those games too. And we wanted to do justice to a Just Cause 3 and really push our talent sets as far as we could. I just hope that the modding community out there is nice enough to do the same thing they've been doing for Just Cause 2. And I'm pretty excited to see, once they get their hands on all the systems that we've been building, see the kind of ideas that, you know, the rest of the world can come up with. I mean, the multiplayer guys are amazing. I think that their work is a testament to what is the modding community, and a lot of us came out of the modding community and into games. So I'm sure there's someone out there who will be modding Just Cause 3 who's probably going to have my job one day.
I hate to call it this, but Just Cause 3, perhaps one of the worst kept secrets in the industry for a long time. You guys were working on it, obviously, and you're working together with the Stockholm studios. And could you just like outline that journey from sort of really starting from ground zero with, you know, getting an office and moving in there, and then coming here to this, and where you're at now in development?
I mean, it's been a pretty wild ride. I remember getting that phone call being like, "Hey, Roland, do you want to come on board and feel like making Just Cause?" It's the sort of conversation it's pretty easy to say yes to. And being able to build a team for a game is a very rare thing. Normally you are a team and you build it up. And to have the experience of the guys here who already did Just Cause 2 and build out a new team, it meant everybody who came and joined us in New York all wanted to make Just Cause. And they all came with their ideas, because, you know, Just Cause is that gamer's game, and it's kind of a developer's game too. You know, a lot of people in the inside world of developing games all played Just Cause and kind of wondered how the hell they did that. And now to be able to be making it, and making it with all these incredibly talented people, I mean, every day it's incredibly fun to come to work. You can learn something new all the time, and it reminds me of how you play Just Cause. You're constantly learning new things, and it makes you smile. And so I hope that us having this much fun making the game makes the game that much more fun to play.
Sometime in 2015?
Sometime in 2015. I think I'm allowed to say holiday 2015 now.
Right. That's even more pinpointed down. Holiday. Well, you got some time to go then, and we're looking forward to sampling the final version when it comes out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.